in the building and the sustaining of the social gospel, the Black social gospel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean Carter. Truly appreciate your wisdom. My dear brother Derek Watkins is here. Brother Derek, won't you come and bless the mic for us?
Derek, before you start, I want to make sure our brothers make sure you change your name, your Zoom names. There are not this many Renaldo, Pearson, and Stephen Greens in the world. And we do need to know who you are so that we can promote you from just an attendee to our panelists. So please change your Zoom names accordingly. And speakers, let's remember 2 minutes. I know you can tell them Morehouse, man, but you can't tell them much, but 2 minutes.
Thank you, Brother Derek.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I want to highlight a portion of Esther. King Xerxes at the time was doing a big gala for all of his military people, for all of his high officials. Now, this was a gala, a party. This lasted basically 6 months, okay? Obviously, coming towards the end of this party, he wanted to bring Queen Vashti to kind of show her off, or kind of show, you know, this is my lady, essentially. And she wasn't with it, right? So she's like, no, I'm not pulling up for this. Well, she was basically excommunicated, okay? So this set the stage for Queen Esther, again, another very familiar story, where Queen Esther, obviously, this is coming right behind this. She had to, again, walk out on faith to go before the king to bring another injustice to attention. Now, she could have been killed just for even coming without being summoned, right? I bring this to our attention because what I'm finding is we have a generation, I'm class of 96, we have a generation that's so far removed from struggle. They haven't seen struggle. So they're so far removed that it's like, oh, I mean, we just had Obama. You know, a Black president, like that's, you know, that's, yeah, okay, we're about to do it again, essentially. Now, I'm not just making this a race thing, but it's curious to me because I'm talking to a lot of this constituency, a very different amount as a producer. He's never voted in his life. And again, I'm looking at, you know, this generation who they don't understand that we were killed for the right to vote. But we find ourselves in this situation where we're so far removed from this idea of struggle. Yes, we all witnessed, you know, our brother in Minnesota. We all witnessed that. But I'm trying to bring to light, because when President Obama ran, the streets was with him. Okay, Obama, he got a, you know, we don't even know Black Barack, same Obama, like this name Black, it sounds militant. Okay, I'm with it. So there was a community of the electorate that just came out to support this idea, right? We're in a different place here. So for, you know, I'm getting, you know, there are very relevant artists out here that are relevant to this younger generation that are saying, you got to do your research on this Kamala and her record on this and her record as a DA and all of these things. So what I'm sharing to you guys is we really have to come and we have to find a very consorted way to communicate to this community that we're not really fully thinking about, that you have to have in order for this to happen. Like it's just not going to happen. And so I'm coming to you really to kind of share the lens that I'm looking at this and where I believe the work kind of needs to be done it needs to be done across the board, right? And giving and all of these different things. But for my time here, I just really wanted to kind of cast this notion of a community, I believe even when President Obama ran, I think wasn't it like 9 million Black folks that still just didn't vote, period, or something like that? Correct the data point. Somebody can help on that. But I'm watching folks out to lunch right now. And when somebody says, hey, y'all, after this, y'all ain't gonna have to worry about this too much more. I'm gonna have this thing so sewn up. I'm gonna have this thing so nice. So my former President Trump, I'm gonna have this thing so nice after this, we ain't gonna have to worry about it, right? This is a real point of view and a real thing. And I'm concerned today. Again, I appreciate the time to be able to share. I appreciate, I just scroll through the brothers here, and then, I'm seeing the brothers that are even logging in and tapping in. We are an extraordinary fraternity, Morehouse College is. And when we really collectively put our best thoughts forward, like Benjamin Elijah Mays said, he said, now I'm about to Tyler Perry the scripture. So hold on, let me not Tyler Perry it. Hold on.
And have you do that, brother?
Hold on. Don't let me do that. Oh, whatever you do, okay. Do it so well, no man living, no man dead, and no man living, no man dead, no one yet to be born can ever do it any better. Let's make sure that we're really approaching all of this like this with our best efforts. God bless you guys.
Thank you, Brother Fontzworth, Brother Derek. All right, thank you, brother. Pastor Jamal Bryant, New Birth Cathedral.
No time to dream nor drift. We've got work to do and loads to lift. Shun not the struggle, 'tis God's gift. Be strong. It is almost as if we are living on the untyped pages of the urgency of now. It's a critical moment because the Black men are the least documented and the least polled in the history of our democracy. The most consistent voting bloc for the Democratic Party since Barack Obama has been Black women. What an incredible moment we sit in to affirm to the world that Black men are providers, that we are protectors, and we are participators. I am coming to you live from Atlanta, Georgia, where Jim Kemp is the governor, but Stacey Abrams should be. Stacey Abrams is not the governor of Georgia, in large measure because Black men did not vote. I want us to challenge ourselves and our brothers to lead the way, to model what it means to support our sisters. What an amazing seat we are perched in, to know that we have two sisters, both Bennett College and Spelman. And so who better is poised and positioned to model what it looks like to support our sisters. On last Sunday, $1.3 million was collected by Black women. Last Monday, $1.1 million was collected by Black men. And then on Thursday, $8 million by white women. Brothers, let's rally the call. I don't want this to be an emotional moment, but I want us to let our actions speak louder than our words. I want to challenge every brother to go to that link of Act Blue. We're currently at $2,000. We should not be able to rest with under $10,000. I want to lead by example. Our most famed alumnus, Martin Luther King Jr., said, if you call yourself a leader and nobody is following you, then you're just taking a walk. I want to lead Reverend Green with a seed of $500 on today. I hope the brothers who are online will match me and exceed it so that we can voice abroad and amplify that there's some critical work that's going to be done. And it's only going to happen when Black men from Morehouse put their hand to the plow and don't look back. Thank you, brothers. Let's rise up and accomplish what we shall.
Thank you, Pastor Bryant. We are so grateful to have a strategist and one who has been part of the polling and data for this movement, Brother Terrence Woodbury. Will you come and give us some of the nuts and bolts to see how we can make this campaign possible? Thank you, Pastor Bryant, for the challenge. We're currently right now at 3725. So let's get to 10,000. Thank you, Brother Terrence.
Thank you all so much. I'm Terrence Woodbury, class of 2009, and I own a polling firm here, Hitch Strategies. Can you all hear me? I own Hitch Strategies. We are a Democratic polling firm that does polling up and down the ballot. We started the company to make sure that we are representing those that are misrepresented and underrepresented in research. And to Pastor Bryant's point, nobody is more underrepresented and misrepresented in research than Black men. We have heard all the polls. We've heard that, you know, Black men supporting this candidate or that candidate. And we started the company to set the record straight. And so I want to show you all some data here. Just a couple of slides real quick that shows you what we've seen since the vice president has become the nominee and what does her path to victory look like. In fact, first, let me see if I can share these slides. Before I do that, let me just correct the record on a couple of the misperceptions about Black men and our voting patterns. Number one is, you know, the gender gap exists amongst all races. There's a women vote more than men of all races. That is not unique to Black men. In fact, that gap is the smallest amongst Black men. Also, men vote more conservatively than women of all races. That gap is the smallest amongst Black men. And so I want to just correct the record there before I tell you all what's happening with the vice president, because you're going to hear a lot more of that. I can just show you all this. There we go. All right. A couple points real quick. Number one, the vice president is not going to inherit Joe Biden's coalition. She will have to build her own coalition. Joe Biden's coalition included a lot of groups that Democrats don't often do well with, like white seniors and white suburbs that Democrats don't often win. Well, Kamala Harris is probably not going to do as well amongst white seniors as Scranton Joe did. So she's going to have to consolidate her own coalition, and that starts with consolidating her base. Her base is Black voters, young voters, and women of color. That's not all the voters she needs, but we got to build a base first before we start expanding. You see the concentric circles of the HIT logo. We got to start with the base. Number two, pervasive misinformation and disinformation has done damage to her credibility amongst key audiences. You all have heard a lot of this. All she did was lock up Black men. She's not qualified. She's not Black enough. She's not Asian enough. She's not woman enough because she doesn't have children. This has been persistent mis and disinformation since she started running for president. I'm not talking about the last 4 days that she's been running for president. I'm talking about the last 4 years. They have been very persistent with misinformation. My grandmother used to say, in the absence of the truth, lies are allowed to fester. Well, that is what has happened with the vice president. There hasn't been a lot of positive information about her. And so when I sit in focus groups, and I'm in focus groups every single day, 5 days a week, and I ask them what they know about Kamala Harris, they only know the bad things. And so we have to tell her story. On the right side here, we must redefine her before they are allowed to define her. We have to layer in her bio, folks, before we just start correcting the record and telling them about her resume. This is a mistake that women candidates, especially Black women candidates, often make, is to over-credential, to prove their qualification before introducing themselves. And so Kamala Harris needs to be reintroduced. Her bio, as you see these pieces of this content around of her, talking to her sister, or talking about her family, or talking to her stepchildren, promote that kind of content, because people need to know who she is. They need to know if she goes to church. They know her husband's Jewish. They don't know that she's also a woman of faith, that her pastor is Pastor Amos. They need to know these things. Who is your mama? Where you from? What you believe in, before we can correct the record and crystallize her vision and define the existential threat. One thing on the existential threat, the racism is not the threat, folks. Black folks know he's racist. Black folks know that politics is racist. And so they're not mobilized by the racism. What they are going to be mobilized by is the threats of danger, the clear and present danger that it puts our community in. That's the existential threat. And so we're going to see us doing a lot more of that with Project 2025. Number three, Black folks do not underestimate America's proclivity for racism and sexism. I hear it in focus groups already. I was in focus groups every day last week. When I asked those folks how they feel about her candidacy, the number one concern is, well, they might not vote for her because she's a Black woman. We remember this from 2008. They said the same thing about Barack Obama. People forget Barack Obama wasn't winning South Carolina. Hillary Clinton led in South Carolina until he won Iowa. That's because Black folks need to be convinced that he can win, and they need to be convinced that she can win. How do we do that? We have to demonstrate momentum, exactly what we've been doing. These calls and promoting this momentum is going to convince Black folks that she has that she can get across the finish line and overcome that racism and sexism. Demonstrations of our collective power, reminders of how we have overcome racism before, like we did with Barack Obama. And finally, mega star power. When she's standing up on that stage with Barack Obama and Beyonce and Steph Curry and everyone else that's reaching out to us that wants to support this campaign, that is what's going to convince our folks that we are unified and collectively can overcome this racism. Finally, Black men and younger Black voters are less motivated by some of the social issues. Abortion is a big exception to that. Black men are supporting abortion at extremely high rates, even higher than Black women in some cases. So what do we have to do? We have to message some of these progressive social issues through Black values. We have to reclaim values like spirituality, masculinity. I keep telling my clients on the progressive side, not all masculinity is toxic. And if we keep on, making masculinity a problem or patriotism a problem. I was in a focus group where a young Black man told me I was actually in a focus group in Georgia last week. A young Black man told me when he sees an American flag hanging on someone's house, he knows that they are white and they are racist. We have to reclaim patriotism. We have to reclaim masculinity. We have to reclaim spirituality. And there's examples at the bottom here of how we can message progressive values progressive issues through Black values. If God grants us all freedom of choice, then why should government grant women any less than that? A couple more slides here real quick, folks, just so that you're armed with the data as we get to work. All right, I told you she's not going to inherit Joe Biden's coalition. She's got to put together her own. Well, this is a poll conducted the day after she became the nominee. She's closed Donald Trump's lead from 6 points to 2 points in just 24 hours. I expect by the end of this week, they're going to be tied. I expect after convention, after she announces a VP and at the Democratic convention, she is going to get above 50%. And that is when she's going to represent an existential crisis to Donald Trump. And he is going to get very, very nasty against her and will also very likely replace his VP. Remember, I told you that. A couple things in this data. We see that she's already closing the gap from 6 points to 2 points. How's she doing that? By putting together her coalition. She's doing 6 points better with Democrats, 4 points better with Latino voters, 12 points better with Gen Z, that's supposed to be, and millennial voters, and 15 points better than Joe Biden was doing with Black voters. That's in 24 hours, folks. That's before she's even had a chance to make her case. All right, last thing here is correcting the record. Look, the number one concern that people have about Kamala Harris after, can she win? Can she beat Donald Trump? Are these white folks going to actually vote for her? After that, the second concern they have is that she was a top cop that locked people up. Well, what we know is that when we introduce them to her record, when we tell them what she actually did as a progressive DA, one of the most progressive prosecutors in the country, we presented just this fact in recent, I'm sorry, this is from 2020 polling. But Kamala Harris was the first attorney general in the country to require a statewide policing agency to wear body cameras and implicit bias training programs for police officers. Just hearing that fact made 53% of Black voters more favorable of her. 53%, 45% of voters of color, and 42% of men of color. Same thing here, when we introduced them to the Back on Track program, which was a pioneering program that has now been adopted by over 100 cities across America. San Francisco is one of the first places to have this program where everyone that was released from prison were guaranteed housing and guaranteed a job. That because when they heard these facts, 52% of Black voters became more favorable of her. At the end of that poll, for anyone that's done ever done political polling, you'll see here, we ask a question at the beginning. We give them a bunch of facts like that, and we ask them a question again at the end. At the beginning, 51% of people of color were favorable of her. At the end, 72%. This type of movement is unheard of in Poland because people are pretty hardened in their opinions. But this proves to me that we don't have to even persuade them. We just have to inform them. Those weren't persuasive messages about Kamala Harris being the greatest thing since sliced cheese. They were just facts. And so that's what our task is going to be ahead of us, is to get these facts out about her, to introduce her bio, to show people who she is, and for you all to continue to correct the record on her record. And for that, it takes money. And so I appreciate all of you donating. Thank you, brothers, for your time, and we will make all these slides available to you.
Thank you so much, Brother Terrence, for your well thought out and for your work that you do. Pastor Dr. Kevin Johnson is the new pastor of the Abyssinian Baptist Church, followed our dear Morehouse brother, Dr. Calvin Otis Butch III. Dr. Johnson.
Hello, and thank you all so much for the opportunity to join with my Morehouse brothers. It's good to be on the call with you. Everything that has been articulated, I just want to echo. This is a crucial election. The reality is that there is so much on the line. And when I think about this particular election, I want to just highlight a few statistics because, as our brother just articulated, this is beyond crucial. In 2012, the election turnout among African-American men was somewhere between 61 to 64% of eligible Black male voters. 87% of them voted for that time President Barack Obama. 2016, the turnout rate was around 54 to 57% of eligible Black male voters. 82% voted for Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. And in 2020, the turnout was around 55 to 59% of Black male voters, and 79% turned out to vote for Joe Biden. Again, this is very important for us, is because, as Dr. Bryant has already articulated, we must vote, and not just vote, but we must also contribute. So this is, for me, and as well as for many of us, beyond crucial. We need your money. We need you to donate. This is probably about the third call that I have been on, and I have donated to every call, in addition to just donating to the Harris campaign. I have felt that she is the best qualified person for the job for a very long time. And so I just want to just echo what many have already articulated. And because we cannot allow for this, and I'm just going to say it, this clown to get back into office. If we think that things were bad before, then they'll be tremendously bad in the future. And so let's vote, brothers. Let's give money, and let's encourage other people. And make sure you take at least 5 other brothers with you to the polls so that we can make sure that we're victorious this coming November.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. I just want to report that we are at $7,620.67. Thank you, brothers. We are pushing our way to our goal tonight. We're so grateful also to have Attorney Lee Merritt, who has been on the front lines fighting for racial justice out of Texas. Attorney Lee Merritt.
All right. Good afternoon, brothers. I just want to go ahead and say what I'm feeling in the moment, which is I'm just proud to be a part of this community. I look at you all, review the faces, the names. Many of you all know from the work that we do throughout the country, and you all just make me really proud to be a part of this fraternity and this community. That being said, I'm a civil rights attorney. I live in Texas. The likelihood of the vice president winning Texas is low, but we're going to fight. I was the co-chair for the Bernie Sanders campaign. I only say that for Texas. I only say that to say that I'm on the far left end of people who are generally in the field of attacking Kamala, Vice President Kamala. And so I have to interact with that community for a while. And I know I only have 2 minutes. I'll probably be the only person that goes underneath it. For a while, our organizing ability from the streets. I just left a protest for Sonia Massey, as so many of you have, but for those people who are frontline protesters, organizers, they were checking out of this election from what I could read, because they could not bring themselves to support Biden, given how much energy and effort they put into the Palestinian conflict and the crisis going on in Palestine. This in a lot of ways begins to clean the slate. It gives that same community, many of which have sort of poked their head into this conversation, a chance to say, we do need your help in saving democracy and building a new coalition in the post-Biden era. That in mind, I see our sister Kamala Harris as one of the most malleable candidates from the extreme end, as we've seen. Our organizing community has had the opportunity to sit down with both White Houses, the Biden White House, the Trump White House. I brought clients there. When we left there after speaking, I believe with Trump, we went over to the Senate and spoke with then Senator Kamala Harris, who went into a detailed discussion about what needs to change in terms of policy in order to reduce police violence. That included arguing to end qualified immunity, something President Joe Biden refused to do. That included changing the use of force statute policy, essentially in a lot of ways federalizing, and I won't get into the technicalities. I will post that video of the conversation we had on the Senate floor. It's these conversations that we need to have. I am very, very concerned about a Trump White House. I know what that meant for our movement, for our cases, for our families, for the increase of police violence. I know that he's suggesting that they offer law enforcement officers under the new project a new form of immunity above qualified immunity. The only legal standard for that is absolute immunity, which judges and other people tend to enjoy. Very, very problematic on the right. And on the left, you have someone who is listening, whose position has evolved over time, who is willing to put people in the room, not only myself, but progressive thought leaders in the room, to educate her and others about how we move forward. With that being said, I am going to come up off my $500 as well, brother Jamal Bryant. I don't know if he tapped out. I will get in line with that as well. We need to show up in a major way financially and in the streets. And those of us who have been sitting on the fence, as I have been this election cycle, I was going to vote and hold my nose, and that was it. This is our opportunity to say, no, our policies can still take a front seat. So thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Merritt. We have with us the son of our dear Morehouse brother as well, Julian Bond, his son, Attorney Michael Julian Bond, City Councilman of Atlanta, Georgia. Brother Michael Julian Bond. Bond. All right. While we're waiting on Brother Bond, the pastor of FCBC New York and LA, Pastor Mike Walrond, won't you join us?
Thank you, Brother Green, for the opportunity.
No, I'm right here when you're ready.
Okay, got it. We got you. We'll come right back to you.
So grateful to be part of this, and much has been said tonight to set the historic context of this. But there are three things I just want to share in the time that Reverend Green has given us. One, Hillary Clinton put out an opinion piece on July 23rd entitled "How Kamala Harris Can Win and Make History." One of the things we often hear is that the country is not ready, and she destroyed that narrative, because although in 2016 she lost the electoral vote, Hillary Clinton got 66 million popular votes roughly, and Donald Trump got 63 million rather, but he got the electoral votes, 340 to 227 with Hillary Clinton's. Although she lost because of the electoral votes, what it made clear is that the country was ready for a female to be president just by the popular vote alone. We are ready at this moment, and I think the foundation has already been laid for us. So I think it's important for us to be mindful that this country actually is ready and is prepared to move forward. The key is for us getting the electoral votes. I think secondly, in 2016, something happened that I think many of us who are critical of the DNC while being members of the Democratic Party realize, is that the DNC and many of the Democrats that we knew and who had opportunities and platforms did not necessarily tell us what was at stake in the 2016 election. I think many were so convinced that Hillary Clinton could not lose. We never bothered to really completely give narratives that spoke of what was at stake at the moment. And I think part of our responsibility now is to begin to not only create narratives and spread narratives of what is at stake, but as Brother Woodbury outlined, we must also demythologize a lot of narratives that are negatively impacting and can negatively impact Kamala Harris's campaign. So one, being aware that we are ready as a country and spreading that narrative. 2, letting people know what is at stake if Kamala Harris does not win. You don't have to be a fan of Kamala Harris, but you have to be a fan of people who struggle for freedom in this country. You have to be a fan of people who are suffering and support those in this country who will suffer under another Trump presidency. So we have to begin to tell people what was at stake. We knew in 2016 and found out in the aftermath, the Supreme Court was at stake. The federal judiciary was at stake. We began to see the erosion of rights. That was at stake. And if Trump wins again, we will see more of that erosion take place. And then lastly, brothers, what has already been echoed in the challenge dropped by Dr. Bryant is that we have to give. And I know we wish that elections were about policy and the issues that really impact us. I know we wish that campaigns was about who was a stronger candidate connected to what is best for the country, but that is not the case. Ever since 2010 and the Citizens United decision, campaigns have become about money. Tragically, corporations dominate. Corporations, according to the Supreme Court, are treated as persons and can give unrestricted amount of monies to campaigns. This is why so many are highlighting the billionaires who contributed to Donald Trump's campaign. And we need to have a tremendous grassroots effort to raise this money, as well as a corporate effort, but we have to give. A challenge has been given to $500, and I want to accept that challenge, but we have to give to make sure, in addition to us casting narratives, in addition to us demythologizing the negative narratives about Kamala Harris, and in addition to making people and helping people understand that we are ready for this moment, we must encourage people to give, and give again. This is the moment, as has been echoed, that Morehouse men rise to the forefront. And we must do that, not just in word, but in deed and in action and in commitment to this season. Thank you, brothers.
Thank you so much, Pastor Mike. Councilman Julian Bond, Michael Julian Bond.
I want to say good evening, brothers. It is good to be here with you. And this has just been a powerful, powerful call. This is more than just a call to action for a candidate. This is a movement that Morehouse men and men of Morehouse everywhere need to be at the forefront of. As I've listened to the commenters on the call, I am inspired to remind everyone that this is more than just a political campaign for a political office. The Right Reverend Amos Brown was being modest when he talked about how his involvement with my father, other distinguished Morehouse alums like Lonnie King and others began the Atlanta student movement that changed the course of America by involving another distinguished Morehouse alum, Dr. Martin Luther King, in their movement. Back in 1960, Dr. King, when he relocated back to Atlanta after leaving Selma and Montgomery, had committed to the Black leadership and the white leadership in Atlanta not to have movement activity in his hometown. But it was because of the appeal of the students from the Atlanta University Center that he got involved in the Atlanta student movement, and then was subsequently arrested, which subsequently involved the campaigns of Richard Nixon and John F. Kennedy that changed the course of the political direction, not just of African Americans in America, who traditionally up to that point had been Lincoln Republicans, but shifted them to the Democratic Party, which changed the course not only of the civil rights and human rights situation of African Americans in America, with the Voting Rights Act and the Public Accommodations Act that came in 64 and 65, respectively, but have set us on the path and the course of which we on and find ourselves on to this very moment, with Kamala Harris being the expected nominee for the Democratic Party. I was there in 2008 in Denver when Barack Obama was nominated, and I can share with you, brothers, that African-American men who were there at that moment didn't want to look each other in the eye because there were tears in those eyes. There was pain in those eyes. There was relief. There was a balm in those eyes of a burden that Black men have bared in this country since our arrival on these shores that was being lifted in that moment. We are at a similar Kairos moment here in America. I thank the brother who put the statistics up that talked about African-American male voting. One of the things of those of us who are located here in Atlanta and Georgia and the South in general have to dispel those myths that somehow that we have abandoned African-American female candidates like Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams received the same statistical African-American male vote as every other Democrat who's ever run statewide. But the mythology has been that we abandoned her. We did not, right? The same percentage of African-Americans that voted Republican in that election voted Republican in the previous elections and elections before that. We have to dispel this myth and this dastardly rumor that we do not support African-American women. And we've got to go out beyond what is within our comfort zone, beyond what is within our bailiwick, beyond what is in our own cabal of friends and associations and fraternities and groups, and reach out and inspire brothers to get on board, whether it's giving funds, getting involved in the campaign, making sure that everybody in our phones, everybody who's in our database, everybody who's our friend on Facebook, Instagram, et cetera, et cetera, is going out, registering, and is voting. This is more important than the typical party politics that make up national elections. It is clear in the platforms of both parties where African-American interests lie. And Kamala Harris, my friend, I support her. She is carrying the interests of the African-American community and what is best for America. So brothers, please reach out, give, get involved in any way, shape, or form that you can. This is our moment to uplift our sisters and subsequently uplift our community. And as E.B. Du Bois has said, uplift the race. God bless you. Thank you. And I appreciate being on the call.
Thank you so much. City Controller Chris Hollins of Houston, Texas, and then Dr. Chris Jones of Arkansas.
Hey, good evening, brothers. It's a pleasure and an honor to be on here with you this evening. Listen, a lot has been said this evening, so I'm going to try to stick to my 2 minutes. But here's, I think, what hasn't been said. There's been some stuff that says, hey, look, Kamala this, Kamala that. There's some misperceptions about who she is. This election is not about Kamala Harris. This election is about us. This election is about our power. This election is about our rights. This election is about our future. And Kamala Harris is simply the vehicle. On the other side, it's not about Donald Trump. What it's about is the causes that are contained within things like Project 2025, which if you haven't seen that, there is nothing more hateful. There's nothing more un-American that I've seen in my entire life than what they're going to be putting forward if Donald Trump is elected the next president of the United States. And so as abhorrent as he is, as racist as he is, as much as he would rather see a Black man dead than in a boardroom, Donald Trump is simply the vehicle for policies that are going to damage our community. While we sit here, you should know, if you didn't already know, that Black wealth today is 60% higher than it was before Joe Biden took office. And that's before the pandemic. So don't blame it on, oh, he just recovered from the pandemic. 60% higher Black wealth because of the policies of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. We have to understand that this is what this is about. And so we have to continue to push forward. Now, we got to win for this to happen. And what I've seen in the last week, I think we all understand that a week ago, we were dead in the water, 0% chance of victory. And Joe Biden was patriotic in taking the step that he needed to give us a shot at victory. And Kamala gives us the best shot at victory. She has the experience. She has the persona. And as you've seen, $200 million raised in 7 days' time. This is unheard of. So the world is putting their, the country is putting their resources behind her. I had the pleasure of bumping into her on Monday. She came down to speak to the teachers union here in Houston, and folks were fired up. Folks were ready to go. And we have not had that kind of energy and confidence anytime in this political season. And so we got to push forward, and we have to do our part with our volunteer hours, with our dollars, and ultimately with our votes. And so let's keep pushing forward. Let's make sure we get to 15,000 this evening. But you got to let people know that this is about us. This ain't about Kamala. This is about us. This is about Black folks having a chance to get a leg up in this world and in this country.
Thank you. Dr. Chris Jones, who is the Democratic nominee for governor of the state of Arkansas.
Yay, great to see you brothers tonight. Great to be with you all. Love all the comments that I'm hearing. Chris Jones, class of 99, Arkansas Democratic nominee for governor. Look, I'm pumped. I'm excited. I'm elated. I'm ecstatic. And I will tell you, for those who are not in the South and you're wondering, what does it feel like in the South? It feels great. And there are people who were in hiding because they didn't want to admit they were Democrat that are fired up and ready right now. So this is our moment. This is our time. I wanted to share a couple of quick things with you. Number one, underscore give. It matters. It's the wind. It's the juice. It's the flavor. So give. Number two, make sure that you do. We are prolific in our words. So use that. I encourage each of us to write. Find your local paper, a small town, either hometown or neighboring city. Write an op-ed once a month. Write an op-ed about what it means, because people read those things, and that's how we change narrative and change perception. I have a syndicated piece that I put out in Arkansas once a week, and it's in about 15 or 20 small town papers. It makes a difference. And last and most importantly, I think go local. Yes, we have to support VP Harris. We're going to do that. That's critical. But let's also support local. Think about what JP candidates, Justice of the Peace candidates, state legislative candidates that we can bundle and support. What do I mean? One of our brothers in Arkansas, we need 8 seats to break the Republican supermajority, only 8. And we've identified 15 seats that were only lost with between 1,000 and 1,500 votes the last cycle. Now, out of those 15 seats, one of them is a Morehouse brother. His name is Lincoln Barnett. So what we can do to go local is get together, 50 of us, and say, you know what? We're going to all 50 donate to Lincoln Barnett. $10,000 to Lincoln Barnett could change his race and help us break the supermajority. And then let's get together, 50 of us, and go down to Arkansas, to Lincoln Barnett's area, and knock on doors and drive folks out to vote. I think we go local. So it's our time. Let's remember to give and remember to go local. Love you, brothers, and I'm excited about what's coming.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. Pastor Dr. Delman Coates, and then Mayor of Montgomery, Alabama, Mayor Stephen Reed.
Good evening, brothers. I want to thank you, Reverend Green and Reverend Francois and other conveners for inviting me to be on tonight's. I had a hard stop at 7 o'clock. I just want to say this. I am super excited, as Brother Jones just shared, about where we are in this critical election cycle. It's been said before, we are facing an existential threat in this election season. But I want to share with you, beyond what's been said already, why I'm so excited about Kamala Harris's run. In 2018, Kamala Harris was one of 3 U.S. senators who co-sponsored a piece of legislation called the Federal Job Guarantee Development Act. The reason that piece of legislation is so important is that a federal job guarantee was the unfinished work of Dr. King and the civil rights movement. If you look at the 10 demands of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom that was shared at the end of that march, one of those policy prescriptions was for a federal job guarantee initiative. And Kamala Harris is at the forefront of members of the U.S. Senate who are supporting this, who have supported this very critical piece of legislation. Dr. Franklin asked at the very beginning, what's the most impactful role we can play during this election cycle? And for me, that is continuing the unfinished work of Dr. King and Coretta Scott King. Coretta Scott King led 1.2 million people in rallies and marches in the 70s in an effort to try to further Dr. King's commitment to full employment. This is so critical and so important as Black men, because right now policymakers pursue an objective of maximum unemployment rather than pursuing the objective of full employment. And what that means then is that there's always going to be tens of millions of unemployed people in America, even in a good economy. And Dr. King was at the front line of fighting to fill that structural gap in our economy. And Kamala Harris was one of those 3 U.S. senators in 2018 who co-sponsored that critical piece of legislation. And there's a movement afoot right now, activists, policymakers, faith and civil rights leaders who are trying to revive that campaign and revive that commitment. So I'm all in, Stephen. I'm all on board, Willie. I've donated $500 to take up Dr. Bryant's call. I've been on calls like many of you, and I was moved Saturday to be on the call with Dr. Brown and Kamala Harris, the Black clergy call for Harris. I'm locked in. We are motivating and inspiring those in our community and in our congregations to come out this election season. So thank you so much for having me on tonight. Sorry, I got to run.
Thank you, Trustee Coates. Mayor of Montgomery, Alabama, Mayor Stephen Reed.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Really glad to see all the brothers on the call. Thank you guys for convening this. I'll be very brief in my remarks. I mean, so much has been said to this point. We've had great data from Terrence Woodbury and great motivation from so many of you who are our faith leaders, our spiritual rocks that we need, as well as those who are doing things at the local, state, and national level in the private and philanthropic sector. All that is great. I just want to say that as the president of African American Mayors Association, over 500 mayors represent 1/3 GDP in this country, it's very, very important for us to elect a president and an administration for 4 years is faithful in working with cities. So many of our cities are working with hostile state legislatures. And that's not just in the South. That is in Ohio. That is in Missouri. That is across this country, in Texas. And so a lot of the things, when you consider what's happening in our community, we're doing without the help of our state legislatures. And these are things that we need to do to be able to move our community forward. The great thing that President Biden and Vice President Harris have done over these last 3.5 years has been to give unfettered access to Black mayors, to them and top administrators within the various halls of government. It is fantastic that I see Senator Warnock, our brother, so often in DC, in the halls of the Senate, Russell Building, and the others, where he is conducting business, because we're there advocating on behalf of where the majority of Black and brown people reside. So when we think about climate change, we think about that EPA. When we think about small business, we think about commerce. When we think about so many of the other areas that we're being impacted, it's because we have access to this administration. That's not going to happen with the next administration. So I just want to leave you with this. I think it's very, very important for us to encourage brothers outside of the circles that most of us run in. It's very important for us to reach beyond maybe our walls of comfort. Take care of home first, yes, but we willing to volunteer and assist in some other areas, some other spaces where we typically do not go. We got 100 days left. That is no time in an election. All the brothers on this call who have given or helped raise money or helped lead campaigns know how quick 100 days will go in any kind of race, much less a national race. So we got to get to it. Use your platforms, use your sphere of influence, and use who you are. All of you have that connectivity to be able to influence others. Leverage that so it's not just somebody, some so-called celebrity who's being bagged by some hedge fund to try to increase their street cred, talking to our people. Make sure we call out the folks who we know are not speaking on behalf, maybe of themselves, but certainly on behalf of our community. But check that where we are. And that's not always going to be in a formal discussion. That has to be wherever it happens. And let's correct the record and let's move forward. because I think if we do take care of the top of the ticket, what Brother Jones and so many others brought up, we will help out those at the state and local levels down ballot as well. So let's unite. Let's continue to do what we've done here. I've donated on this cause. I have the others. We'll continue to do that, and definitely look forward to all of you doing the same. And let's make sure we back up the contributions with some work. Ain't nothing like sweat equity in a campaign. So let's figure out how to get it done, whether it's in our backyards or whether it's somewhere else, to make sure we bring this thing home on November 5th. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mayor Reed. Trustee Euclid Walker from Florida.
Thank you. Wow, what an amazing group of brothers. It's wonderful to see so many of my friends on this call. I just want to say a few things. First, as Reverend Green mentioned, I'm here in Florida, 10 minutes away from Mar-a-Lago, deep in what most would call Trump country. And I know a little bit about how important the financial apparatus is for campaigns. My first step into being involved in political campaigns was I was on the finance committee for Senator Obama's Senate campaign. And then I was on his finance committee for both of his presidential campaigns. And I will tell you that in all three of those instances, well, in the first two, no one on the finance committees or in the inner circle thought that we had an easy road. We knew it was going to be a dogfight and it was going to be an uphill battle. And that's what we're in right now. There's a lot of euphoria and excitement around Vice President Harris right now, as there should be. But make no mistake, this is going to be a very difficult fight. And there are really two things that will help us win this fight. One is money. So we must give today, but even more important than giving tonight is making sure that we keep this momentum going and we give tomorrow and we reach out to our circle and make sure that they give. We need to make sure that this platform is a vehicle that Morehouse Brothers can contribute into on a going forward basis. So that's point one. Point two is work. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. The path for Vice President Harris is different than it was for Biden, as we've already seen. We have to make sure that Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, Arizona, Nevada are all seriously in play, because she's probably not going to get the same level of support in the quote unquote Rust Belt. Hopefully we were able to win Pennsylvania or Ohio, but that's probably more difficult for her. So I'm just here to say, let's do all we can to help our dear sister. And I hope that we can have a magnificent party at the Waldorf Astoria in Washington, D.C. to celebrate her victory. Thank you, my dear brothers.
Thank you. I look forward to that inaugural ball held at the Waldorf Astoria in Washington. We are so grateful for you, Brother Euclid. Let me just take a moment here just to let everyone know that the 1867 PAC belongs to you. This belongs to Morehouse College. It belongs to the alumni of Morehouse College. We are so grateful for the opportunity to launch this PAC as a project of the Collective PAC, which is the largest Black super PAC in the country, essentially. Our dear friends Quentin James and Stephanie Brown James have given us the privilege to have our own PAC. We ask that you would donate here on the link in the chat. But we also ask that you would go to the 1867pac.com, sign up, register, and we invite the 1867 PAC to your city, to your community, to host a fundraiser. Well, like I said, this belongs to all of us as Morehouse men in our community. We hope to have an event at the Morehouse Howard game the Friday before the Morehouse Howard game, which will be held on September the 13th here in New York City. An 1867 PAC sponsored along with Bison PAC. We will host our inaugural sort of event And then we will have an event at Morehouse College Homecoming to also raise money. So we invite you to, use the link, invite your fraternity brothers, invite the brothers in your dormitory. Brazil Hall represented here. I know I see some Graves Hall folks, Kappa Alpha Psi's represented here, Alpha Phi Alpha, Omega Psi Phi, Phi Beta Sigma, Iota Phi Theta. I saw one Iota here with us. So we want to make sure that everybody is here with us and feels connected because this pack belongs to all of us. We want to wrap up here very shortly. So we want to be very gracious of everyone's time. Dr. Jonathan Collins, who's a professor here at Columbia University. We invite you to come, and then we will go to Georgia State Representative Eric Bell.
Thank you, Reverend Green. Brothers, it's great to be in community with you all. Jonathan Collins here, Assistant Professor of Political Science and Education at Columbia University. And I'm honored to be a part of this conversation at such a critical time. A lot has been said, so I'll be brief. The only thing that I want to underscore is something that we already know, but it needs to be emphasized, which is we are headed into a very, very tight and competitive election. And so what we do, even if it's small, but of course, if it's big, could be something that tips the scale. And so just how close is this? Brother Woodbury already presented some of the sort of national polling results indicating that Kamala Harris is down about 2 points nationally. She's creeping in. There are some polls now that have her running neck and neck with Donald Trump. The biggest question, though, I think are, well, where is Harris strong, and how can we, as a group, as a body, as an organization, as brothers, help build on her strengths? And so early polling has her up about 15 points with young voters, 18 to 29. That's an age group that we are particularly, I think, appealing to and able to access and be influential within. She's also interestingly polling well amongst older voters, our senior voters, 65 and up. And of course, polling extremely well with voters who are holding a bachelor's degree, 22 points there. The interesting thing is that she's virtually tied with Trump in the Midwest, where we know there are several swing states there. We have several brothers who are connected and, of course, living and working in the Midwest. And so everything that we can do to put boots on the ground in the Midwest is going to be extremely important. She's also up about 4 points in the suburbs. This was critical for Obama in 2008, the ability to appeal to suburban voters. Black candidates do particularly well in urban districts. The extent to which we can see a movement happening in the suburbs often determines the election. Think about the difference, but one of the big differences between Clinton in 2016 and Biden in 2020, suburban voters, and Harris is already performing relatively well there. She's also about 2 points up amongst independents. The area where I think we should also be, we should be focusing on is folks who are very apathetic about presidential elections and about politics in general. If the polling is showing that amongst those who did not vote in 2020, Trump has a 10 percentage point advantage. That's huge. And one of the biggest subgroups of folks who expressed no intention to vote in 2020 and also no intention to vote again here in 2024 are Black voters, and particularly Black men. Harris is only up, Harris only has a 68% support rate amongst Black voters, which is, compare that to Obama in 2008, who had 95%. Compare that to Obama again in 2012, 93%. Compare that to Biden in 2020, 90%. 68% is abysmal. And so it's going to be important for us, given our stature in our communities, to make sure that that number gets back up to the number that starts with a 9. I'll wrap up by just saying that we actually had a record voter turnout rate in 2020. We're going to need to replicate that voter turnout rate again, but we're going to have to make sure that the voter turnout rate occurs in very key areas. One of our brothers mentioned earlier, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by 3 million votes, still lost the election, wasn't enough. President Biden won the election by 5 million votes. That was enough. We're going to have to see that sort of math replicated. Again, this PAC is an important way to sort of contribute to seeing that happen. I've donated. I hope you donated as well. And if you haven't donated yet, there's still time. back to you, Reverend Green. Thank you, brothers. Great to see you. Great to be in conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Collins. State Representative Eric Bell.
First, I would like to say thank you to Reverend Green and the other brothers that organized the 1867 PAC, because this is monumental, because we have a chance to support our sister, our HBU sister, Kamala Harris, to elevate a Black woman to the highest seats, not only in America, but in the free world. And that can't be done without Morehouse men. As Morehouse men, we are the epitome of what a Black man should be and what a man should be in this nation and in our world. And it's up to us to uplift this Black woman. And with the 1867 PAC, this is our vehicle to do so, not only at the United States level, at the federal level, but at our local level as well, to support candidates across the nation, whether that's in California or whether that's in Texas, or even right here in the state of Georgia, where we have people running locally. If you don't know, we only have 3 legislators in the state of Georgia. Myself, Brother L. Holly, and Representative Roger Broof are actively serving Morehouse men in our state legislature. There's no actively serving Morehouse men in our Senate, and we're actually losing State Representative Roger Broof. So if you haven't supported our brother, Bryce Berry, who will be the youngest state representative in Georgia history who's actively running to replace someone who's a Morehouse brother. We need this, y'all. Now, how can we stand by the side and not let this happen? When President Franklin ran for Congress, this wasn't in place to make sure that he win. But now that we have this in place, we'll make sure that will never happen again. As in the city of Atlanta and the state of Georgia, we have the largest alumni base here. So I expect Georgia to show up. I expect Georgia and the city of Atlanta and this metropolitan area to show up for Kamala Harris to make sure that our sister wins. And thank you for being here and joining the call, and make sure you donate and match that $500. And if you can't, put in the sweat equity. And if you can't, $1 will help go a long way. So please do your part, brothers, and make sure that Morehouse is represented at the top. We don't want Howard might beat us in basketball and football, but we can beat them on the donations now. Thank you.
All right, Representative Bell, thank you. We see you, Brother Bryce Berry, class of 23, running for state representative in Georgia, House District 56. We asked brothers to support his campaign as well. We envision the 1867 PAC to do just that, to support Morehouse men who are running for office, to support to support candidates who align with Morehouse values as well across the country, and also to train and develop candidates to run for office. Brother Andre Washington was an SGA president at Morehouse College. Brother Andre Washington is also an attorney in the state of Georgia. Welcome, Brother Andre.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks to the team that put this together. This is a phenomenal endeavor. I will be very, very to the point. So first point, elections are not rewards for past victories. With that said, though, the vice president has a long record of achievements that we should be proud of. The juvenile justice reform policy that I helped work and advance here prior to law school, a lot of those things were based on developments that she did when she was district attorney in San Francisco and attorney general for the state of California. So a lot of those policies are now modeled nationally. And that leads to the next and most important point, that this effort isn't just about this election. It has to be with the future in mind. The fact of the matter is, for the next 20 or 30 years, as the demographics change here in the state of Georgia and across the country, elections will be more important to fight and to be involved in because the issues will be more pronounced. The Republicans are methodical in how they advance policies. They will hang on to a policy for years and years and years, as you see with women's rights to choose, as the elimination of affirmative action, the Voting Rights Act in 2012. They take their time to attack policies in a very specific and deliberate way. We have to do the same thing here with this effort. We have to continue to keep our eye on the prize for November, but recognize that we're going to have to do this again in 4 years, do this again in 8 years, and do this again at every local and state and federal election. And with that said, what's the best way to get involved? There are 3 forms of capital that I encourage people to give. One is your social capital. You know folks that would not necessarily vote. You don't want to lose this election to the couch. The idea that folks are going to sit at home as opposed to voting. So your social capital says, get those folks that are around you, those people that you know, and make sure that they are voting. So don't allow those folks to sit at home. The second is your time. Make sure that you are volunteering your time and your efforts with either the 1867 PAC or any other volunteer efforts to encourage people to register to vote, to get out and vote, to knock on doors, to make sure they have a plan to vote, They know the right points of entry to get support, whether it's driving people there. Make sure you help and are donating your time. And then the final one is capital cash. The state rep here, Calvin Spire, used to say it takes coal to run a train and gold to run campaigns. So give. Continue to give your time, give your effort to make sure that we are part of one effort for November, but also for the future. Ultimately, everybody in this call represents a larger community and has continued to be involved. And so my hope is that we continue to put in the effort, not only with this election, but again, when she becomes president of the United States, continue to help out where she can. Proud of you guys, inspired by your work, inspired by what you're doing. Honored to be here, honored to be able to help. And I look forward to seeing you guys around and doing things. Thank you.
Brother Washington. Brother Curtis Valentine is on the Morehouse National Alumni Association board and also an education activist as well. Brother Curtis Valentine.
Thank you, Brother Green and Brother Pearson, for organizing this call. So glad to be here with you, brothers. For many of you, if you're like me, I'm having deja vu. We were here in 2008. People doubted whether it could happen. People doubted whether people would vote for Barack Obama, and we did it. If you were like me at the time, I was a regional field director for the campaign, and I was able to do the work that I did because of people like us who were donating. The more you donate today, the more volunteers, but also the more field organizers that can be hired, the more offices that can be opened. And so there are literally counties in this country where field offices are going to be open because of donations like ours. You have people who look just like us on the ground, organizing volunteers to knock doors, to make phone calls, and to do the very small things, the sort of marginal things that win elections, sometimes as little as 10 or 20 or 30 people per precinct. Also to understand that, I think I mentioned earlier, I think we all sort of were taught at our school and were learned and thought that a lot of the victories of the past were behind us. But we're understanding that every generation has to reclaim that every generation. So the work that we're doing is not just for what we're doing right now, it's for our children who right now are watching us every day, seeing what are my parents doing right now to fight for my future. But also when my time comes, and our children's time is going to come either while we're alive or soon after we're gone, and they'll have to do this all over again. And we are setting the blueprint for that. I also want to say I'm a girl dad, something that I take very, very seriously. And I can remember the look on my daughter's face when the news came across the news that President Biden was stepping down. And my little daughter, 14 years old, her eyes lit up in a way that I'd never seen before. And there was a level of freedom and optimism that I felt in 2008. And so I take that to heart. Again, while we were at our institution, we learned a lot about the civil rights movement, learned about the apartheid movement, we learned about slavery and the freedom movement reconstruction. And we all wondered, what would we do if we were alive during that period? And we all say, you know what, I would have done this and I would have done that. Well, guess what? You're alive right now. And this is our time. You can't claim what you would have done then, because what you would have done then is what you're doing right now. And so take that very seriously, because what you're doing right now is what's going to keep us moving forward to the future. But here's the good news. We were trained at our institution for such a time as this. Every lesson that we learned, every time someone told us that we had a responsibility to lead was for this very, very moment. So we don't let them down. We carry the torch of our institution with us in moments like this. And that moment, it will come again. But I want to tell you all, if you ever doubted yourself, that you are prepared, that you are already prepared for this moment. Before I go, I just want to say this. There are brothers who look like us, who wear our colors, who are saying things that we believe are not sort of up to the standard or lack data or logic or any sort of thought about how they got to this point and who they're going to vote for. I leave you with the words of John Henrik Clark. I only debate my equals. All others, I teach. Thank you all very much. Donate today, support this campaign, and ensure that this victory happens on our watch and that we don't miss out, not only on our responsibility right now, but for our children. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brother Valentine. Just want to let you all know again tonight, we're pressing our way. I think we are past the $15,000 mark, waiting to get the word from the collective PAC, but want to just encourage you to keep donating and to send this link out to your fellow Morehouse brothers. One of our youngest brothers who is on the call tonight, Brother Tyreek Jackson, class of 19. Brother Tyreek, won't you just come on and greet us, who is doing campus organizing on behalf of the efforts to elect Vice President Kamala Harris. Tyreek, if you're here. You got to unmute yourself, brother.
Hey brothers, how you doing? Tyreek Johnson, class of 19. I'm sorry that I'm happy to see all the brothers here. I'm actually with an event with Governor Bashir, and I am the campus organizing director on the Harris for President campaign. I'm here as a Morehouse brother, not with the coordinated campaign. I'm really excited to see all of the activism, all of the excitement and support. As I'm not gonna keep you guys long tonight. We've heard a lot of great things from a lot of brothers. Thank you, Brother Green, for having me on the call and organizing this. As a lot of brothers, I want to focus on an emphasis. I want to emphasize a statement that a lot of brothers stated before about that sweat equity. We have events going on all across the country right now, and as I believe Brother Terrence said earlier, we are focused on a lot of the people of color and a lot of the students. As you all know, we all went to Morehouse in Georgia. Georgia's a battleground state. We have to win Georgia. We have to win Arizona. We have to win North Carolina. And a lot of that comes with a lot of the phone banking, a lot of the organizing, a lot of the calls that we're making every single day. So, brothers, I understand sometimes we can't always give a financial donation, but we can pick up the phone every 1 or 2 hours every weekend so that we can make calls for VP Harris to get her in office. I'm really excited to see all of us on this call galvanizing the troops and mobilizing ourselves. So if you all, I would love to see you all. We have events going on every single day here in Georgia, any county that you're in, and all across the country. I work right hand with Eve Levinson, our National Youth Engagement Director. And we'd love to see everyone on this call get on the phone bank with us or get on a digital texting campaign with us. And so I'm really excited. I've donated. And beyond just donating, guys, let's make some calls. Let's get out and let's knock some doors. And I've seen some other Morehouse brothers on here, like State Rep Eric Bell, Bryce Berry. Those are brothers who are also trying to punch that ticket in this November. So let's just support each other. And I'm really excited to have all of you on the call, and I'm really excited to be here. Thank you, Brother Green.
Thank you, Brother Jackson. I truly appreciate you. We want also to also shout out our dear brother, Reverend Thomas Bowen, who is the senior faith advisor to President Biden, who was on the call with us earlier as well. Some of the faces behind the 1867 PAC are here with us. I want to introduce you to Brother Renaldo Pearson, and then to close us out will be that of Reverend Dr. Willie Dwayne Francois III.
Thank you, Brother Green, and I'm so glad all of our Morehouse brothers stuck to that 2-minute time request that we made at that time. No, but in all seriousness, it really has been beautiful to witness this intergenerational cross section of Morehouse luminaries, from the pastor of Vice President Kamala Harris, who she was the first to call after President Biden made the announcement that he was stepping out of the race, to all the way down to Georgia State Representative Eric Bell, of course, who is representing Morehouse in the state halls there in Georgia at the state legislature. And even you just heard from Tyreek Jackson, that Robert Smith class of 2019. So I just want to be brief to make sure we understand. We heard several references towards the end. Curtis Valentine specifically talked about the data. We want to make sure, and we even saw this in the chat, that the folks who mentioned the data that you've seen, we want to make sure that we follow up after this call, make sure we email the slides that you saw from our HITS strategy CEO, Brother Terrence Woodbury, send that out. Also messaging guidance from our friends at ASO Communications, send that out. And also Project Freedom Policy Agenda, which Faith for Black Lives and Others, Until Freedom and Others are part of. We want to make sure that we send those things out. And as you heard Reverend Stephen Green say, the donation link that we sent in the chat, 100% of that goes to support our HBCU sister, Vice President Kamala Harris. But we'll also be sharing a link to seed the 1867 PAC so that we're able to build on what Trustee Euclid Walker and others talked about, Dr. Chris Jones talked about, in terms of making sure we support Morehouse men who run for office in the future and Morehouse aligned candidates and issues. Reverend Green just dropped that chat in the link. And with that, we're going to be closed out by my dear brother, and I like to call him my pastor, Reverend Dr. Willie Francois.
Before we go to Dr. Francois, I just want to give a final update. We're at $13,662.37. So we're about $1,500 away. Brother Khalil, God bless you, brother, from Win with Black Men. We're about $1,500 away from $15,000. So brothers, help us get that tonight. Help us get to $15,000 for our initial fundraising for Vice President Kamala Harris for president.
Brother Francois. Thank you, Brother Green.
Thank you so much, Reverend Green and Brother Pearson, for inviting me to partner with you all in this effort to make sure that the moral vigor of Morehouse College is added to the weight on the scale in this very significant moment in the life of our nation. We've heard so much tonight that has been fruitful and has been fodder for how we move forward. What I know for sure is that although this democracy has in many ways been an organized conspiracy against us, against Black folk, we have been democracy first responders. Whenever this country is flatlining, policy-wise, politically, it has been Black folk who have pushed through our own democratic grief and have shown up for this country. And it looks like we have to save it again. And we know that Black women have been at the fore of that, and there's just no other way of narrating that. But Black folk have been democracy first responders. You cannot talk about Civil Rights Act of 64, Voting Rights Act of 65, Fair Housing Act of 68 without talking about Morehouse College. That is how significant we are. And that is our own attempt to live into Thurman's challenge for us to grow tall enough to wear the crown that has been placed above our heads. But it is real. If the New York Times is right, and I really hope it is wrong, that we may be on track to having the largest number of Black folk voting for a Republican in a presidential election since the passage of that Voting Rights Act that we helped to secure, and that has been gutted significantly in this country, and that is what draws us into this fight. That's what summons us to this task in a more concerted way than we possibly would have if what happened last Sunday didn't happen, right? And there's a lot of energy that our HBCU sister, our first Black woman vice president, has injected into this season, into this process that we have a right to engage. What I know for sure is that Black folk are progressive voters. There are a lot of ways that they try to characterize us, but there's no more progressive voting bloc in this country than Black people. We're the most progressive on civil rights and racial justice. We're the most progressive on voting rights and democracy. We're the most progressive on labor rights and economic justice. We're the most progressive on criminal justice and police reform. We're the most progressive on healthcare, housing, and education. We're the most progressive on world peace, international solidarity, and non-intervention. You will never find a more progressive voting bloc than Black folk. And that is why we are committed to the Democratic Party in the way that we have been. It is not about party, because in spite of the ways they try to the way they shape narratives on us, we are not party committed. We are issue voters too. And we're issue voters who are committed to the very progressive issues that make America live up to what it says it is on paper. The last thing I want to say here is and Doc and one of the earlier speakers, Dr. Collins, said this a moment ago, but we have to spend significant time thinking about our suburbs. The suburbs have become more Black than they've ever been before. And there's a narrative in this country where we talk about the suburbs as if it is white women only, white mothers only, white soccer moms only, but the suburbs are increasingly Black, and we have to put energy there. Currently across the country, especially in our swing states, there's no significant political infrastructure for Black folk in our suburbs. And that is an opportunity for us to engage and think deeply about. We have to push our county and state parties. We have to push our NAACP chapters and our churches to think about Black votes in the suburbs. That Shaker Heights is just in Ohio is just as important as Cleveland. Richmond and Sugar Land in Texas is just as important as Houston. Henry County is just as important as Atlanta proper. Westchester is just as important as Philadelphia, and Southfield in Michigan is just as important as Detroit. We have to put our efforts and our energy into mobilizing Black voters in our suburbs. There are allegedly, according to the Minnesota Law Institute, that there are 9 million Black votes that are not engaging. 4.5 million of them voted for Obama and haven't quite shown up in the ways that some people think we should. And most of them are in our nation's suburbs. So we have a significant growth opportunity for mobilization, infrastructure investment in our politics in our nation's suburbs. And I know we can do it because that's just what Morehouse men have done. We've changed the country before, and obviously we're going to have to partner with our sisters to do it again.
Thank you, Dr. Francois. Incredible. Thank you all for sticking with us. This was only supposed to be an hour, but you know, with Morehouse Men, we went to an hour and 45 minutes. So we're grateful. If we were in person, we would lock up and sing the hymn together tonight. But since we cannot, we are going to just close out with how we started, with a word of solidarity, a word of prayer. I want to just reiterate that you can donate directly to VP Harris' campaign in the 1867 PAC. We encourage you to encourage other Morehouse brothers to host fundraisers, to host events at your home, and send out the 1867 PAC link, because all of that we're going to do will go on behalf of the 1867 PAC to Vice President Kamala Harris. And we also sent a second link in the chat to Seed 1867 PAC. We're going to ask people to give $18.67 a month to support building Black political power from Brown Street. And so many of us know that Brown Street was where the conversations were held while we were on on the beloved campus of Morehouse College. And so we want to take that same prowess and really lead this revolutionary moment. Also, I want to inform you of a political agenda. The Challenge Project 2025 is called Project Freedom, in coalition with Honorable Michael Blake, Until Freedom, Tamika Mallory, and Faithful Black Lives, and a host of other organizations. We have developed a framework for a policy agenda that is a vision of the world we want to see, and not in fear of what we hear proposed from Project 2025. So we invite you to go to ourprojectfreedom.com to be held abreast of the 17 policy issues that we have identified, and also to support and encourage 1867 PAC to talk about the fact that we're going to build Black political power from Brown Street. So we'll close in this manner. Holy Spirit, make us steadfast, honest, true to a Morehouse and her ideals. We thank you for this call. We thank you for this gathering. We thank you for this movement. Allow the revolutionary spirit that was upon Mordecai Wyatt Johnson, same spirit that was upon Howard Washington Thurman, the same spirit that was upon Martin Luther King Jr., let it be the same spirit that transcends upon us to do the work, to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with thee. In the many names in which we pray tonight, we say amen and ashe. Have a great night, brothers, and to ties more brotherly.